think as a when you get older, and I've definitely found this with myself, is I've remembered things in a different light.
Yeah.
So not going to get into the too much crux of it just yet, but like when you come from like the stuff I come from, like abusive childhood sort of stuff with my dad and stuff like that. I remember more now than I did then, and I sort of make it relevant. And that relevance with it when you go in there, you're like, oh, what would I do if I was in that situation? Or actually, when I'm older, I can actually respect what happened. So it's one of those. It's well, that was the perfect segue to talk about actually what we're here for. It turns out you know each other, which is when you talk about irony, it's quite funny. But no, sorry.
I thought he was winding me up. He texted me and he's like, I'm going. Are you going on a podcast? I was like, yeah. He's going to see you there. I was like, I think I just ignored you. I think I ignored your message. I was like, how did he know that? And then it stewed on me for a few days, and like he's let me stew on it as well. And I've messaged him, are you on this podcast? He's like, yeah. Oh no, wow.
Small world, isn't it?
Well, I basically said because he's not that good at speaking that he had to come on just to
Well, see, I had, because he and I are obviously mates from working in the sector together. We saw your post on LinkedIn that you had done it. Then you had said, oh, I've got this guy coming. I thought, well, hang on a minute, I'm sure they know each other. So I messaged you, didn't I? I went, fancy this.
Yeah. That's cool. But yeah, so look, I don't come from a background of going through any mental ill health trauma. I left the army, enjoyed construction, and construction really opened my eyes to the challenges of construction. And there's so many different challenges that we can discuss. But since then, I've been on a journey, one of understanding mental ill health and understanding people who suffer from it, because I didn't, and I was definitely someone before that thought that mental health was just wasn't a thing. I didn't believe it was real. I just thought that it was people used to say it was the bad back. Do you know what I mean? The new bad back, whatever you want to call it. So I've been trying to find myself throughout that journey and understand it, but also help other people. And throughout that time, I've obviously gone through situations where I've seen and spoken to people that struggle, and I sort of put myself in a position where I'm an individual where people approach when they're struggling, and I think that's just come naturally. That's not come from me like prior. That's just, I think I've just been a person where people find themselves they can talk to me, and it's taught me a lot. And I work in safety, and during last year I was doing some like looking at statistics and stuff like that, and things to talk to my business about and to the people that work for us. And I looked at the statistic, and it said, and I looked at the ONS stats of suicides. It was on basically on average 500 people take their own life every year. And I've got a kid, I've got a young kid, she's nearly 2. And at the time she was just crawling. And I remember working from home, my desk was there in the hallway up there. She was crawling, just crawling around. And I just looked at her and I thought, wow, imagine if suicide took me away from her away from me. And like, I'm not an emotional person, but since having a kid, like, I don't know,
it changes everything.
It changed everything for me. And I just thought, I've got to do something about this. And like, we can talk about it later, but me and Chris have done a ridiculous challenge, physical challenge event we can discuss, but I thought I need to do something big. And I come up with this idea of running 500 miles, 500 lives in full construction PPE. And I rang a couple of people and I was like, what do you think of this? And everyone was like, no, mate, don't do that, you're nuts. And I thought, that's why I've got to do it. So I did it on the journey, obviously a half marathon every week. And throughout that journey, I've just unintentionally put myself in a position where it's not necessarily just people that I know that can approach me with mental health conversations. It's more so people that don't know me. And like towards the end of the running, I was running like locally, especially where people would see me so much and they would just stop me. Like I have had so many conversations with people that have just stopped me and just wanted to talk about their mental health.
I think that's when you know something's worked.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? When I started like trying to look at starting this, and when you talk about the only reason we're doing this is if we touch one person that they feel that they can talk after this, it's succeeded. And that's a similar sort of thing that you're doing now. And it shows that it's worked.
Yeah, definitely. And to a sense, I feel proud in a way because it's a really tough time actually. So in 2 things. The first one is I lost a good friend to suicide during this event this year who worked in construction. And I will never ever unhear the cry of a 7-year-old boy
No.
at a funeral. That I just, it sends shivers down my spine thinking about it. It was a real chill moment for me. And I did a few posts about it at the time, obviously during this running event, and about a month later, and I didn't know this, so on Facebook I had you get a message request box on Facebook.
Yes.
You don't really get told about
You don't see it sticks in the back.
Yeah, so I randomly looked into that in my box, and I had this message from a girl. She sent me a couple of messages actually, and she basically she'd seen one of the videos that I did about my friend went viral, like it went quite viral in the Facebook sense. And she basically messaged me, and the first message was her saying that she was struggling with mental health and that she found my video really informative. And then, which I hadn't read because I didn't know it was there. And then about 3 weeks later, 3 weeks later, she sent me another message basically saying that she'd watched my videos and basically she'd been encouraged to go and get support, and she basically was thanking me and saying that my video helped save her life because she was actually planning to take her own life at that point. And I remember sitting there reading. I was with my partner at the time. I was like, you said that one person.
Yeah.
I'm like, my job's done.
Yeah,
My job's
100%.
done.
And I think you can feel such like it's a sense of achievement at the fact that you've also created that bond for life, because you'll always remember that thing like stopped to doing something that ultimately affects so many other people around them and herself, isn't it? And that people don't realise the dark places that someone can go, because, and we'll talk about it during during what we like our conversation and stuff, but there is that stigma that we can't talk about it, the man up sort of stigma that we've got. People don't do it, but when you're doing stuff like that, people feel like they can relate to you.
And what I'm passionate about when you say stigma is, so when you look at stats with mental health, it's always like 1 in 4, 1 in 5, 1 in 6, 1 in 7, whatever that stat may be, whatever it's related to. We rightly so focus on the one, and because that's the person or the individual needs help. The stigma comes from the fact that we don't focus on the other side of the stat, and it will always be stigma if we don't focus on the other side of the stat, because when you hear of someone taking their own life, the first thing you'll hear from anyone will say, well, I didn't expect that.
And one of the guys who I happen to know as well, who's a friend of mine, a guy called Sean Restall. Sean's a mental health first aider. So I put him in touch with Sean. Sean and went, look, what do you think of this? He went, oh yeah, 100%. He said, give me his number. Put him in touch with Sean. Sean rang him and said, look, in the event, you got no idea you saved a life. He went, that was on that tipping point. It's not to say pat on the back to me, it's that point that you made about recognising the trigger signs. I'm not qualified mental first aider. I could be compassionate, conciliatory, put my arm around somebody and offer them good advice, what I hope would be good advice. But Sean was a trained mental first aider, so like, you need to deal with this, mate. And then the guy himself come back to me and went, you've got no idea. And that stems from when I was younger. I used to run my own business, my own company business, my dad, and I suffered from depression. Didn't know what it was, couldn't quite work it out, was aware enough to know that the thoughts I was having were irrational, so I knew I needed to do something about it, because I'm quite a logical person. So I was lucky. I see it as being lucky. But to the point where you think about suicide, and I'd even then checked my insurance policies, and it said you don't get paid out on life insurance for suicide. I thought, well, I can't leave my wife without any money. So that was the point. I thought, well, this is not an option. So I did get that bad. So I was like, right, okay. I'm not telling her any of this. I'm dealing with it on my own, smiling, happy, probably drinking too much. Thought to myself, right, okay, I need to go and see somebody. Went to go and see somebody, and the guy went, oh yeah, you've got OCD. He said, that causes depression. He said, take that every day, you'll be fine. I was like, wow. So it was that like epiphany moment of, oh, so I'm going to be all right. Yeah, oh, cool, lovely. But you have to go to those dark places, and I was just very, very lucky that I was rationally still lucidly thinking, what I'm thinking is not normal. This is not what my friends are thinking. This is not what I managed to pull myself out of it. And I don't go on and bang on about it and eulogise and say, putting myself in the position probably that you guys have been more upfront with it. But I'll talk to people about it if they ask. I just don't go and preach the details of it. So I was very lucky.
I think there's a chat. So you know, I've been pretty fortunate in terms of career. I've been able to progress to a pretty senior level, and one of the challenges is you want everybody to be open, but the further you go in your career, the harder that becomes, because actually vulnerability, which is I think is a very good thing, is seen as a weakness the higher you are up the food chain. So, you know, how many times have you ever seen like a director come out and say, I'm going to tell you all about my story? Or very, very infrequent. Yeah. And actually that creates a discord between, you know, you might have your people on site that might actually get something out of somebody, because then it creates this connection across your business, right? So if somebody at the top of the chain can speak, and then we got people in, and then, you know, the people on site, it becomes a culture of openness, and we can talk about it freely. But there's still that stigma there of, if I talk about it, somebody looks at me in a completely different light. Somebody looks at me as I'm a real strong person, but actually if I start to talk about I've had these thoughts and stuff, it's like
mistaken for weakness.
Yeah, absolutely.
I drink and I'll go on a Friday night, I need a drink now just to decompress, and that's a very dangerous place to go. I wouldn't say it was my coping mechanism, but it's a dangerous place to be in.
Yeah.
So I get it. So it's definitely a positive thing to go.
It's your relationship with alcohol, isn't it? It's understanding your relationship.
And
like, I don't view drink like that. I'd never view drink as a mechanism of that. A drink for me is a social battery.
Yeah, same for me.
It's a social battery.
And I started to and I'm changed, so I'm probably in that camp now, because I've stopped that sort of stuff, and I enjoy a drink now, because I'll have 4 or 5 pints while watching the rugby with my brother or something like that, and I enjoy it. But notion used to be, when I was in that sports environment and stuff like that, because you got everything building up around you, I was just going to carry on and carry on and carry on. I don't need to now, because I can go home to my kids and have a good time and whatnot.
It's just because my wife's her relationship with it, she likes a glass of wine on an evening. I'd rather have a cup of tea. But then, so my relationship with alcohol is, when I'm out, it's a social thing, and it happens that I'm drinking something weird because I'm in a social kind of setting. So I think my kind of default, if I'm a little bit stressed, is I'll probably just go and do some work, because it's kind of and I think the army does a little bit of that too. I'm the perennial compartmentalizer. What I'm thinking about at that moment is what I'm thinking about. Yeah. So if I'll just go and do so, and I lock myself into it. It drives the wife nuts, because she's like, oh, no, I'm thinking about that thing at the moment. She's like, oh, you're not thinking about me? Well, no, because I'm out mowing the lawn, so that's the most important thing in front of me at that kind of moment in time.
You're like you just, if something pops in your head, you just want to do it. Just like, it comes in and it goes.
So I'm the same. My wife gets annoyed at me with it, like, but then nothing else matters, and that task is there. And says, you're too impulsive. Oh, no, I enjoy doing it.
I must have had, played football for a number of years, and you kind of get older and you can't quite play at the level you want to play at. I've tried every hobby. I can never get back to that feeling that football gives you, and we do kind of mountains, and that's as near as I can get. Talk about
mountains. By the sound of it, you've tried. So Chris alluded to what we wouldn't be doing it. A challenge that you guys did. Just touch onto that for a little.
So we kind of similar. He said he rang up a few people and said, "Do you want to run a load of miles?" I said, "I've got this idea. Just listening out. I want to do climb 50 mountains in 5 days, and I've got the strap line as well." 50 peaks in 5 days. We and don't worry, I'll arrange everything. I'll sort of it. You literally just have to turn up, and it won't be that bad. And so we did 108 miles in 5 days, and just shy of 14,500 meters. So just about 1 3/4 Everest in 5 days. Just kind of it was kind of a bit of a war of attrition. And we did that for, I'll touch on it a little bit about, my son and that kind of journey I've been on, and how that's affected me particularly. But I'm a doer, so I'm probably not a great. I wouldn't probably make a great mental health first aid, because I'd rather do. So when he said, "Oh, I'm running this event," and he said, "It's just about if we can raise awareness." Right, I'll go and do an event, because that's what I'd rather go and do something rather than sponsor it. I'd rather, like, how can I help or do something, and but then it also, that helps me as well, because I kind of again throw myself into whatever I'm doing at that moment in time. But But I think it was interesting that event we did because we were all together. So we lived and breathed with each other for 7 days, sleeping in a youth hostel and all this sort of stuff. And you saw the highs and lows of everybody. So every day you'd say to me, "Hey, are your legs not hurting? Are you not struggling?" No, I'm fine. And he'd look at me as though I was like, "What's wrong with you, you freak?" type thing. Then we got to like the last day, and he said, "Yeah, I'm struggling here." Like it was struggling, and I think that gave
him feel better, mate.
It's like if he's dying, I'm all right. I think that drove me on, and really, for me, I felt responsible for everybody, and it was my event, and I couldn't really let myself to be seen to be struggling, or because actually everybody looked at me to be the.
But it's as tough for you as it was for everyone else.
And you think about that from a mental health perspective, that actually, how many times have people looked at us and gone, "He looks pretty like strong and set in his life," and that. So actually, I look to that person, and you almost. Well, I really can't talk about what my problem is. You kind of start masking things.
But then how do you relate that to
That's a really good point. That's a really good point because there was a video that Norwich City did a few years ago. Now that really, I really love watching that video because genuinely, you never know who's struggling, right? Yeah. And if you look at people that they're not struggling, if you look at everyone like they've got their shit together, they've got all their. That can be counterintuitive towards supporting people because it makes you not want to speak or not want to. And I found throughout my experience doing this event is because I openly talk about it, mental health, is that's why people approach me because they already know before approaching me that I'm open to the conversation. So the more there is we are at a point in the industry especially, and we're at a point where there's so much awareness out there. There's so much awareness. And there are some people thinking that it's a negative thing, like as in there's too much awareness. There can never be too much awareness. And for anyone as an individual setting out to raise awareness, like kudos to you. But you're not only raising awareness about a subject, you're making other people around you aware that you can have a conversation. And that's it's not that people can't do more. Everyone could do more. We could all do more, but it doesn't mean that we're not doing enough.
Yeah, but there's also a benefit.
Yeah, you're doing your bit. Yeah,
there's a benefit everywhere else. So, like, if we take our awareness out, and you're looking at this as a business, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you raise awareness about it? Why wouldn't you put the support mechanism out there? We've got a brilliant sort of employee assistance program now that we throw out to everyone, make it so accessible to everyone. But why wouldn't you? Because I read a stat the other day that something about 49% of workplace sickness now is due to either anxiety, workplace stress, or mental health. And it's like, why wouldn't you try and bridge that? Because it only benefits everyone. First and foremost, it benefits that individual. But secondly, you're going to be more productive as a business anyway. So why don't you do it? But there are some businesses that are doing some amazing things with trying to do it. There's certain companies that are doing like Wellbeing Wednesdays, or they're doing something like that, which to really actually just lift everyone. And then there's individuals who are doing it, right, who are fighting the good fight, so to speak, and that's brilliant. Like, we talk about your climbs and stuff like that, and you felt that mental health aspect of I had to be the one to look after that, but we can relate that to construction. We alluded on it earlier about people in higher positions, or even people when you're looking at supervisors on the ground or whatnot like that, they feel like that all the pressure's on them and that they can't talk.
So I came from a media and publishing background, so advertising sales, and one of the phrases that we used to use there with when people planning advertising campaigns was opportunity to see. So you'd put your message in as many different locations as possible to give the consumer the opportunity to consume your message. So you scattergun, you structured but scattergun, so they pick it up subliminally. One of the things I've always liked to see is that you give people the opportunity to talk about mental health, or if they're struggling or what have you, in any environment. So yes, it's great that we're doing it from the work environment, but there might also be people that think, as you said earlier on, I don't want to show a sign of weakness at work, because if redundancies come around, they know I've got a bit of mental health, they might think, well, So yes, it's great they've got the opportunity at work. Then in the sporting environment, I run my son's football team, and I say to the boys all the time, lads, come and talk to me about whatever you want. hasn't got to be football related. I'm not going to tell my boy Charlie. I'm not going to tell the other managers. If you want to come and talk to me, you come and talk to me about it. Because they're 14, 15-year-old boys, you know. So again, there's an opportunity there. Running the team, you've got that responsibility as their sort of senior person for them to look up to. And I think sometimes you forget the role that you have almost by accident. You put yourself in that environment because you want to coach football. Hang on a minute. Got 16 boys now that look up to you, and you've got their respect because you're training them. So you need to give them that two-way relationship. So what you're saying about work is fantastic, brilliant. The work that Kiely's have done, Ash and I have been on the journey together where we now set up a prison system where we go into prisons as well. We'll come on to that later on because he tucked me right up on but then it's the football environment as well. We're doing something there where we're giving kids an opportunity to speak. So I think it has to come at every accessible point.
I think
there's lives.
I think there's a challenge. So you said, how do you kind of relate to construction? I think if we just put mental health aside for a very quick moment and we think about our process in construction, right? We always come back to a supervisor. So installation rate, supervisor. Making sure people are working safely, supervisor. Quality, supervisor. Documents, supervisor. If you've got a problem, something's unsafe, supervisor. If you're struggling mentally or mental health chance, speak to your supervisor. Yeah. Like, why is somebody a supervisor? Because they were pretty good at being a brickie or being an electrician, and I wasn't actually, when I was laying cable, I didn't demonstrate that I was a brilliant
people manager,
social mental first aid. I wasn't a brilliant document person. I wasn't a brilliant.
And how much support do you get in that when you get to that role is a question.
And that's the challenge. And do we, you think about when people see things in different lights. So for instance, if I saw trauma, it doesn't. I'm not squeamish. It doesn't bother me. I'll think about it further down the line. But if I saw somebody, I remember when I was on a course in the army and we come around the corner and a guy had come off his motorbike and his leg was pointing the opposite way and the bone had come through the skin, and you're like, oof, right. And people, that's a bit scary. And I just remember the guy was like, please tell me my bike's all right. And you're looking at 600 pieces down a back lane somewhere near Senny Bridge. Your bike's fine, mate. Don't worry. I'll pick it up for you. It'll be fine. We'll ship it out. So that's one trauma. And that's a physical trauma. And I'm kind of all right. But how do you know the next person is and the next person is? It's a bit like that. So if somebody confides in you, and it's quite an emotional talk that they're giving you, how do you know you're going to cope with that? Like, you've got that, and that's the kind of knock-on effect. So it's great to have people to talk to, but if they got the emotional toolkit to be able to deal with that,
it'd be interesting to see. When I don't know the answer to this, I'm just bringing it up, and I'm sure I'll go look into it. It'd be interesting you say that, because you go and do, I don't know, an MVQ or uni or college course in bricklaying, say, or laying surface dressing. How much of that MVQ or that learning tells you about the mental side of it and how to deal with it? Is that, should there be mental health first aid included in that as a part? Should that be doing that? That's the question. It's literally just come to my mind when you're on about. You go, you're right, because if you see an exceptional brickie, if we see an exceptional HGV driver, if we see someone who's just genuinely good at what they do when we're surface dressing a road, that'll be a good supervisor and all that sort of stuff. We're actually I've got a different mindset. So the reason why I don't class myself as having any specific mental health issues. I can appreciate my past and that sort of stuff. But the one that really sort of stuck with me, and the reason why I do this and I try and make a difference within ours is, again, my son's got Down syndrome, so special needs, and we go into these classical big top musicals put on by a lottery funded and stuff like that. And it's tough. Your experience is probably very different, but you probably felt the same. Is you don't get much information, you don't get anything like that. And we went to this big top musical, and there's this lovely lady, and she was there. Her daughter had special needs, and she did nothing but guide us to brilliant places. Yeah. Told us about NICE, told us about this Arch Smile, speech and language therapy. And we went back the next week, and she weren't there, and she committed suicide. Yeah. But she was smiling and talking to us, and then that's where my sort of want to help people comes from. So I don't come from a construction sector, but I can see it now that I'm in the sector. Where I want to make a difference. So we genuinely like try and get those health and safety. I'm on the road to become a mental health first aid instructor because I've got my I'm a first aid instructor. I just need to attach mental health so that we can deliver it to our wider business. Why wouldn't we make that part of the progression process, the progression ladder, the awareness of it? Because it's not at the moment. If you go look at it, just a simple MVQ, which the guys will do, is welfare in there.
Yeah. Well, I think, and thank you for sharing that, by the way. That's good. What do we get from an early stage? Schools, unis, colleges. What do we get in terms of preparation for mental health? We don't get anything. No. And so we're trying to address a problem now that should be addressed in early years when your ability to learn and to be able to deal with emotions and to learn emotions, right? So I don't know if you know this, but in South Korea they introduced the Suicide Prevention Act. And that Suicide Prevention Act was introduced, and the key parts of that basically is to early education. So schools and unis, you'll get specific education around like what to do if you struggle, emotional support, like what is out there for help. And to be fair, on one of my main learnings from my running around the UK was that no one knows what's out there. People don't even know what the Samaritans are, and that baffles me. Right? But the other part of it is of the legislation, it puts onus on councils, companies to create 5-year action plans where you put specific actions in place to sort of help and reduce the numbers. And in South Korea, they've had a reduction in suicides every single year.
What's the name of the guy that you spoke to in South Korea?
It's actually, Chris put me in touch. He's done a load of research. He's even written papers on suicide. Mate. Yeah, and we're actually going to be lucky enough. So hopefully on next month's episode, we'll get him on, and we've managed to tie him down when he's visiting an event. So we've been pretty lucky in that fact. But he talks a lot about it.
Mate, his assessment, and you talk about things like mental health first aid, and like when I was at the construction leadership, the construction meeting, let's get construction talking. Sorry, this week. I told loads of people about that investigation because I found it absolutely groundbreaking.
I started to dive into it when you showed me, and it's definitely a level of commitment that he's got.
It's very critical towards mental health first aiders. Now, I share my opinion on mental health first aiders is I love the intention. Everyone who gets it is got the best. Yeah, of course. The intention is there to support.
It doesn't mean you're an expert.
But it doesn't. And to be fair, there's two sides of it. One is what are you getting a mental health first aider for? What is your workplace getting them for? Are you looking for them to be proactive, or are you looking for them to just be there to be available, right? Because they're two completely different things. And I feel like when let's say we all create mental health first aiders in this room, we've just come out with this idea, right? As a business, let's get people and let's train them on signposting and signs and symptoms, and let's have them in the company available for people to be able to use or to get out there and start a conversation. Where actually what's happened is we've gone, right, okay, that's a great idea, let's go and train people. Put your hands up if you want to do that. Well, the people that we're discussing that suffer the most are the people that don't want to do it, because they're the guys and girls who are on site. Yeah. They're the guys and girls who are on site doing a job that so there's so many preps. One, they don't have time to do the course because they need to be doing the job. Two, a lot of these people are on a day rate, and so the course isn't funded by the company. It will have to be funded by themselves, which is another problem in the industry. And two is it's exactly the same what you're talking about in terms of the directorship. If we work on a site and you don't see me putting my hand up, you ain't putting your hand up. And the problem stays. Yeah. So then that's left to normally the girls in the office, or the guys in the office who care, and it's a great thing. So then what happens is these people in the office environment, they get trained, and then we send posters around sites. These are your mental health first aiders, and they're there to be available. But what happens is you're actually creating a divide, and if someone in our environment, in we're working on site and we're one of the grafters on site, we then do struggle and we approach a mental health first aider. Their view of a mental health first aider is different to what a mental health first aider is. They're going for a solution. And actually, a mental health first aider can't give you a solution. It's not a problem you can fix. They can signpost you towards a professional that can, or they can listen.
It's a good way of looking at it, actually, isn't it? It's like you don't think about those wider things when you look at it, like until you look at it in depth.
And that report really does. And it doesn't say it in that terms. That's just my view on mental health first aiders. But the thing is, and I tried to say this the other day, was that I'm not slating mental health first aiders, and I'm not looking to slate anyone, because everyone's intentions are true. Everyone's intentions are to make a difference and to help and to raise awareness. But I just feel that specific control measure that we've thought about isn't having the desired effect across the industry.
No. So what would be a better solution or a better intervention?
It's a really good question. Obviously, if it was as easy as a simple control measure, we would, as an industry, we would have done it by now, right? I think we need to put legislation in place. I think there needs to be legislation in place, and I made that quite clear on Monday, is that we've seen that countries out there have had the same problem. They've put legislation in place and they've seen results. And I think there's 3 countries that I've heard of that have got similar sort of environments, and they've all seen results. We've built empires. You know what I mean? We're a country that loves to say that we lead from the front, but we're in a state where we're not leading.
We actually, we see it from. I think you guys have got incredible like sort of experience in the construction sector. We see it in the highways industry. And we break this down to if I say to you, if someone's having a bad day, and mental health is going to come in all forms, right? Where it could have been something that's happened at home, it could be work, it could be anything, right? And that you don't know what state that person's coming into work. And we've got this massive problem at the moment, road worker abuse, right? Literally going to governments with it and stuff like that. And it's horrific. It's quite scary that the very network we're trying to fix is, the people who are trying to fix it are getting abused by the people they're fixing it for. It's when you look at it and you're in mental health and you're getting a worker go there, he's just gone there to do his job. He might be at the brink. He might be at that point that you guys on about earlier. I've just messaged someone saying, I'm just about to take my life and all that. Yeah. And then you get a member of the public walk past or run past and abuse them for no apparent reason.
Because they can't get
that will tick them over the edge. Yeah. And it is, we've got a massive issue with it at the moment in the sector.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But it's also it's about identifying that everyone shows it in different ways. Like you can't see it sometimes. So it's about, and I'm just using the excuse of the public there, but it happens within in the sectors as well. Just remember, I think for me, legislation definitely needs to come into it. I think we need to, as a sector and in construction and highways, is absolutely nail on the head that get rid of this stigma about not talking about it. Yeah. And accept it. I lead onto this, and I talk to Dave McCabe. We spoke to him about it, and about drugs and alcohol in the sector and how prevalent it is, because people trying to deal with different things, issues, all that sort of stuff. And immediately the plan is to go, right, okay, if you caught, see you later. Just about how we're supporting them.
So we were talking about it on the way here. So obviously part of our business work in highways as well, and we got a project kind of over in the southwest, and I was working away, and I just got, somebody doesn't really look at your calendar, so I just keep ringing you 100 times on Teams. Please join meeting, please join meeting. You reject 100 times, but they're still quite persistent. So I joined this meeting, and he said, we just kind of want to get your advice on something. I was all right, fine. What is it? Well, we've got this project, and it's kind of typical road project where you turn up at the side of the road, and there's a bit of camaraderie, and you go off and you do your work and so on. And one of the guys, they described him, he's always like bubbly, he's like the life of the party, he's like the soul of the party type thing. And last night he came in and he was like really quiet, and he was quite removed and everything. And so what we're thinking about is doing some random DNA testing. I said, how have we got there?
Yeah, that's what zero.
Like, well, he was, he wasn't himself. Yeah, let me ask you that question again. How have we got to DNA testing? Well, we could have been under the influence of alcohol. Did you smell it? No. Was there any physical elements?
Slurring his words or anything like that?
No. So I said, how have we got there?
Did we ask him if he was okay?
But that's the bit. Has anybody actually just said, are you all right? Like, oh no. Yeah, but I think we should do. No.
We're not doing anything around his shoulder.
We from a policy perspective, quite prescriptive. There's no for cause, right? So there's nothing there that's suggested. So it's like, let's talk to him. So one of our we got quite a young female safety advisor, and she's joined us as an apprentice, and she's brilliant with the guards on site, because surprised even though she's only 21, they really listen to her, and she's really good with them. So they call. Listen, either the PM, I would suggest Zoe is probably the better one to do it. Let's just on tonight. Are you okay? Is everything all right? Last night somebody mentioned, we just want to check you're okay. And by the way, REAP applies to every single member of our supply chain and the family. So let's just, in conversation, if you're not feeling right, this is what it is. But you're like, how did we get to the DNA? And it's obviously, we're an industry where if somebody's not quite right, they must be drunk. So let's test them.
Or they're on something.
Yeah. When you told me that, I thought, wow.
Yeah, that's disgraceful. That's just basic, like, like if you saw your friend, my question back to the people would be like, if you saw your friend like that, would you DNA test him, or would you ask him if he's okay?
Well, the thing is, though, in that situation is, no one's, like, when you've joined a call as an external sort of source, basically, and no one's had the ability just to step back. And no one's thinking, like, what about this? And there's no bad intention in there.
They're going down the rabbit warren, aren't they?
Yeah. Someone said something, and someone's gone, oh yeah, that might be a case.
You shouldn't immediately put someone under the base.
Yeah. But how many people were on the call, Jamie?
It was like 3 or 4, and it wasn't. The question wasn't from a like, I'm going to catch this person. It's where their brain naturally went. Now we talk about education. We talk about education around mental health. Actually, there's a person there. It's not even about being a mental health first aid, but it's actually just being aware of certain scenarios and what that could mean, and not to jump to conclusions. If we talk about traditional safety, you're doing an investigation. Don't jump to conclusion. Get your evidence, do your statements, build a picture, timeline, and everything. And you always say if you jump straight in with that's got to apply to every life.
There's an element here as well. It's just us as humans.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's unbelievable. That is, like, to me, I wouldn't even. If someone's just different and they're usually the life and soul of the party and they've changed their demeanour. If you were like that, Neil, I'd just go, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
We did it. We know he doesn't drink anymore, so you're all right.
But we did it. We did it the other day, and we alluded to it when you came in the building earlier, but before we started filming, and we had a chat. We played around the golf, and he went, "You're right, Ash." And I went, "Nah, it's a bit tough at the minute. Like, not any. I'm not going through any mental health issues and all that, but I've got 8-month-old baby and that sort of stuff, and the thing, no one tells you how tough number 2 is and stuff like that. And it's just a nice chat, and I was like, okay, and it was like. That's just him as a human. He's not a mental health first aid. He's not anything like that. Yeah. It's just, for me, as I say, like, if you're saying that, I always look back and go, if it was a friend of mine, what would I do? I'd say, "Are you okay? The support you." Not, "Will the drug and alcohol test you?" That's just as a human level, never mind even like education on it and that sort of stuff. But it's.
I try and learn something. Everybody I meet, I try and learn one thing about them. I'm generally really good with faces, shockingly names. I'll always remember the face. I can generally always remember what they've told me. And that's just my way of, next time I see that person, it'll be 6 months, how's your dog, or golf going, or whatever. Yeah. Because actually, I always find the way to get somebody to open up is about making them feel valued, but making them feel the conversations are about them. And actually, there was personal things. How's your daughter getting on at university? She's actually doing everything else okay. Yeah, we're not quite. They're little things. They're subtle things. That you don't necessarily get taught that on a course or anything such as that. But I think we're, in the most cases, we're comfortable about talking about things about us, but not necessarily about me. If that makes sense. I'm happy to talk about the kids, the dog, the house, the missus, everything else. You want to talk about? I'm not so. I don't want to talk about myself. I'll talk. I said to him on the way here.
You just nearly alluded to the story.
I said I'm happy for everybody to. I'll talk to anybody about the challenges that they got. Just don't really ask about my challenges. I think that's how we're built.
So you challenge. I'm not going to ask you about challenges. Just so we asked Chris earlier, why did he go and do his running and stuff like that? Why do you think it's important? Like, was there a light bulb moment that you went, I've got to do something about this?
So for me, there's probably
there's
probably three poignant moments in my life really, and one's back to childhood. One was when I was in the forces, and then one's around my son. So I come all my mum's side were all coal miners, and then on my dad's side they're a kind of mixture of Brummies and Glaswegians, and kind of hard kind of family.
Yeah.
So my nan, who I kind of look up to, she got divorced in the 60s, and she worked in a coal mine. She was one of the cooks in the canteen, and she was the only woman that stayed out on strike for the entire duration. Mm-hmm. So when they come back to the after the strike, none of the blokes had let anybody other than my nan serve them, because they just didn't like that everybody else had come back. Yeah. So she's quite a kind of hard woman. So from that side, we always had really kind of strong, for my mum's like that, always really kind of strong females. Yeah. And then my dad, like when younger, my mum and dad, we grew up in pubs. And that's not a probably great life as a young kid, because they open up at 6 o'clock. So, we used to get sent to bed at 6 o'clock. I'm 10, I'm not sure why I'm going to bed at 6 o'clock. But, obviously, my dad is, and we don't have a relationship, and we've not had a relationship for a long time, and I'm kind of completely at peace. I've never always been at peace with that, but I am now. And I think he was a masker, so he'd kind of use that environment he worked in to almost be a bit of a show off. And so if I was doing something well, whether it was as a child or as an adult, he'd boast about that. But if I wasn't doing something well, it's kind of sort of almost non-existent in some cases. So as a child, my mum and dad separated, and we became my dad's kind of bargaining chip in some shape or form. So, for instance, he took my mum to court to get custody. Wasn't interested in custody. It was about getting as an 8-year-old had to go and sit in a court and tell the judge who I'd never met, actually, I want to live with my mum. And then that kind of then there was like stories of where my dad's he lived a mile away but didn't see us for a year, and he'd ring up his own coming to collect you, and we'd be sat out on a wall, and you kind of, your dad's obviously your hero when you're younger, but as I got older and got my own kids, you can really be you can retrospectively look back and say, actually, what I think now is completely different to what I was as a youngster. But that was a kind of real challenge, because my dad ran a pub, and I used to go to watch Rotherham. I'm a Rotherham fan, and I stopped going because my dad didn't take me. All my mates saw my dad in his pub, and they used to come, I've seen your dad. And I ended up, that led to me getting suspended from school, because I just used to punch people.
Yeah.
And if I kind of look back at when I was a kid, I'm probably very different to what I was now. And I had no mechanism to deal with that.
That was a trigger, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I couldn't talk to mum. I live with my mum and my sister, and it's not something I'd necessarily talk. And
you probably couldn't have articulated it.
No, not at all. I was just angry, and we kind of moved. We ended up moving, and my mum to kind of take me away, because that could have led to something more severe. And actually, that really was probably the first recognition for me as I kind of got into teenage years, where I thought, I don't know how to cope with this kind of scenario. So to kind of go and bury my head, and you hit out to my mum and my stepdad. They were trying to help, but they were just public enemy number one to me. I kind of hated everything that they said, and I moved out at 16 because I just wanted to get out, because all I could think of was, actually, I'm better doing this on my own. That kind of access not there. Then joined the army, and the army's a really interesting one, and it can kind of resonate a little bit at construction. So there's some cracking phrases that get said in the army, and whether it does now, I don't know. But get a grip is a cracking term. Pain is just a sign.
Pain's weakness leaving the body.
Pain's weakness leaving the body. When we were in the army, like even showing any form of vulnerability, you were annihilated, and not in a jovial way. It was like what the hell are you doing? Why are you serving airborne forces when you've got there's some weak in you? We're built to be strong, and that kind of sort of stuff. And I broke my leg parachuting. I was quite. I broke both bones in my leg and dislocated my ankle, and that took. I basically went nearly 6 months of rehab, and you were you kind of on your own. So the army just farmed me out, kind of sent me off somewhere, and you kind of not with the people you used to working with, and so on and so on. And that was kind of difficult. And I remember sitting there and thinking, you know, is this, why am I doing this? Is this worth it? I feel like I've got a broken leg. I'm probably not where I should be. I don't really want to go home. I'm kind of in this place of, I'm
You don't know what's next.
little bit lost in my
Professional
life.
sports people say that about rehab as well, don't they?
Yeah.
Where they're not with the team, they're
Yeah.
not in that environment,
Yeah.
they're just in the physio. And
Yeah.
The army's quite different with injuries because it's very. I don't know if the culture's still there, but there was a culture, especially I spent a lot of time in the army injured, unfortunately, was you go to a parade in the morning, whatever time, and everyone's doing PT. Let's say you're going to go for a run, right? There's a section of people that can't take part in the run because of the injuries they've got, and like it is horrendous when you're the section of people that can't take part. Like
you get called a biff.
Yeah,
You're a biff,
you
and
get
you're like
drilled.
you're almost like a leper.
Yeah, and it's demoralising, man.
Yeah.
It's real demoralising.
I actually snapped my leg in, and I'm still affected by it. But I was doing something for the army. It wasn't like I,
did he play football?
I was drunk on a
Do you know
weekend.
what's scary? That's not specific injury, but so I mean that's something that happened all the way through because my dad, my uncle was a paratrooper, paratrooper, and he broke both his ankles landing. He says exactly the same thing. He goes, "You are just
And I think it's crazy because like even when I'm in that situation and you see people like broken legs and stuff, it's like that's a physical injury. Like you can see that. Like you can see he jumped out of a plane, broke his leg. Like why can't we just accept that? Just let him recover.
Yeah.
But also, if it's that, like it's going to be common with especially in a military thing, but injuries happen. Why haven't you got a better support process there? Like and again, we can later relate that to like in the construction highways industry. But you would have thought the support process was better.
Well, you say that there is a relation to the construction industry. So you're in a gang of 4, right? You go to a gang of 4. You've got a job to do. That job requires 4 people to do that job, and you said that job's going to take you 4 days, right? Within that time, if one of the 4 doing the same job needs to take a couple of hours off or needs to take a bit of time out, all of a sudden you're that person in the army on the left. All of a sudden you haven't done as much as me, you haven't grabbed, you haven't done as whatever that is. And there is that like, and in that as an individual, and you're that one of the 4, the one that needs the support, you then want to try and push yourself to carry on because you don't want to let them down. And it's like, it's just that counterintuitive way, isn't it?
You know, a lot in the forces, you find the majority of people actually join the forces to run away from something. Generally what's happening. So they're running away from problems at home. They've got personal problems. It could be relationship problems. It's whatever. And then the army comes this kind of mad box of frogs of loads of people who have got problems, but actually we just go somewhere in the world and we go out drinking on a weekend and we do a bit of PT and all that sort, and it's fine because I'm away from that problem. And actually you see those with like more challenges in life, like they'd stay in the camp at Christmas and because got no families, and it's like, it's a very weird.
I think it's crazy because it's the way I put it in the army is that the army becomes your parent. Because it gives you the security, the financial security. So I mean, it's changed now in terms of but like your accommodation was paid for, your food was paid for,
travel,
like, everything was. You literally just
and your life's organised as well, isn't it? People are making decisions for you. You've just got to be.
Every day you go downstairs every night. You go and read the orders that are on at the bottom of the block, and you read. If your name's somewhere, it'll tell you what time to be there, what time, what to wear.
So that's one of the things Ashley said. Think about when we meet the guys, and one of the things that really has always interested me is the amount of people that you see that are ex-military that are sitting on the side of the street with a cardboard sign that say ex-services, and they've got their service number there as well. So you obviously work with the armed services as well. We do it in the prisons, and we're starting to look at the armed services to bring them into construction. Is there still not enough support for those people coming out of the army?
There 100% is. There's so much support there. Whether that support is widely known is another thing. There's so many charities out there that can support people. Like we have got an abundance of charities that can support anyone in any situation of the drop of a hat, right? So there is enough support out there. It comes down to the individual and the trauma. It comes down to the individual, the trauma, and whether they have the ability which they do have the ability, but they recognise they have the ability to overcome it or find a way of dealing with it. Sometimes trauma affects people so much that they use it as they beat themselves over the fact that they've got the trauma, but you can't control what trauma you go through.
Sure. So is that almost a subliminal excuse? I'm not trivialising the way they do it, but I can't do that because of, they can't help me because of.
Yeah.
So that's their own mindset that they need to overcome themselves before they can then accept the help.
Well, if the way I feel about it, and this is all subjective, but if you don't understand it and you're the person that's gone through it, you'll struggle to understand whether someone else can. You struggle to come to the conclusion that someone else can understand it.
So I had that when I was 16. I worked for Barclays Bank, and we was on the till in Bethnal Green in Shoreditch, in East London, and the bullion was coming in. And as the bullion came in, my job was look out, finger on the trigger, looking around, making sure nothing was going on. And as I looked one way, I looked back, I had the double barrel shotgun there.
Wow.
So you're like, right, okay, there you go. Get your money. We were trained, give them the money, get them off the premises, we're insured, members of the public, staff, get them away. And so the flying squad guy said afterwards, you're very calm for somebody who's been in an armed robbery. I was about 17. Yeah, well, bulletproof glass, give them the money, that's what we're trying to do, get them off the premises. And he said, yeah, excellent, did it all well. He said, but just in case you get overconfident, it's shatterproof, not bulletproof. He said, so you will die, but your mum will recognise you.
Wow.
I was like, oh.
Wow.
Got you. Right, so we then were sent on a course, like a therapy course. Yeah. Great, the bank had done well-meaning thing, they're sending you on a course. Everybody was on the thing that day, went on the course. I remember sitting there and it was the archetypal guy who came in. He looked like a geography teacher. He had the big bushy beard, the scruffy hair, the check jacket with the elbow patches and the cords on, and he sat in his horseshoe and he was like, right, so I know what you're going through. And I went, have you ever had a gun at your face? He went, no. I went, shut up. That was more me being 17 and what have you. And if I'd have stayed and listened, he probably would have been able to talk me through it. So that you talk about trauma and the people understanding it themselves. That was that sort of incident.
Well, we were talking earlier about trauma. So if I come back to like episode when I was younger, and then kind of when I was first in the forces, and then with my boy, like when we were going through the autism diagnosis, and he's non-verbal. I was working in the Middle East, and my wife was here. I know we touched on earlier about access and things such as that. So we were in a very fortunate position because I was working in the Middle East. We went private with everything. So we were paying £85 a week for private speech and language and £100 for occupational therapy and stuff. And we were fortunate we could do that. And so my wife's at home dealing with all that, and I'm away. So there's a connection to construction. Yeah. I'm away, earning the money. So she's dealing with the emotion, and I'm earning the money. So in my head, we're both doing our bit. Yeah. Not the way Danielle sees that whatsoever. And she's very much more. She's far more emotionally mature than I am by a long way. And so we'd be talking about. She said, your place needs to be here, and I'm the kind of man in me says, yeah, but how are we going to pay for that? Like, yeah, but we need you here. Your son's like, yeah, but how are we going to pay for that? And I was working on a stadium, on one of the stadiums for the World Cup, and I had a 45-mile drive every day to work and back. And the highway that I used to drive was Alcor Highway, and it's about 150 miles straight as a die from the Dora, goes insects through Alcor and up to the top of the town. So you're just driving on the same lane every day and having this same conversation. And I kind of sat there, and it just kind of appears from nowhere. And I just sat in this car one day and I was thinking, I think I'm out here doing what I should be doing, and it doesn't seem enough. And then you start thinking, it would just be better if I wasn't here. And then I had this like kind of snap moment where I'm driving, and I thought, what happened if I just drove into that central reservation? And I was kind of thinking that for about 5 or 10 minutes. And you go through this thought process, and I never got to the place where I did it. And actually, that was a kind of little bit of a wake up call for me, because you're I'm in that place where I'm thinking, what's the point of me?
It's a dark
But
place,
actually, there is an absolute point of me because I've got 3 beautiful kids, a beautiful wife that not necessarily need me, because that looks like self-indulgence, but we need each other. And I kind of then I thought I need to see somebody. And we were talking about this earlier, and I went and saw somebody. And I went in this room, not that far from here, and there was a lady counsellor, and we sat there, and she said, "Tell me a bit about yourself." So I walked to her, and we came straight back to childhood, and it was about my dad. And she was like, "That's your problem." So me thinking about whether I'm going to drive into the middle of the road ain't got anything to do with my dad. And it was kind of that, and I could understand when people go for advice why they get put off by it, because I thought, I'm not coming back here. I don't want to listen to that. I've put that piece in a box, and I'm comfortable that sits in a box on a shelf, and I don't really want to revisit it. So fortunately for me, my sister was involved as a patron in a military charity up in the northeast, and she put me on, and I went and saw this psychologist, and he was ex-forces himself, being a lieutenant colonel, and we talked, and we just talked about the forces, and we talked about me, and we never once talked about my dad, so that was kind of great. And he said, it's all about, for you, of finding a coping mechanism that you understand and that you can relate to. And we got talking about carrying weight. And so as in the army, you kind of carry weight. And, it's a bit like your suitcase when you go on holiday. How much actually in that suitcase do you really need? Yeah. You just took it because if I think I need it. Like if you took half of that out, you'd probably still survive. And so he used, in the army, you have a Bergen where you carry most of your kit, and then you might have a day sack. And he said, the Bergen is what you absolutely need, and your day sack's what you don't really need. And if you didn't have it, you wouldn't miss it. And I was kind of, I get that, because jumping out of planes, sometimes you can't have everything because of the weight on the static line and everything such as that. And he said, think about it from an emotional perspective. There's things that you might concern you or worry about, and so on and so on. But what are the key things that you think you need to work on? Keep them in your Bergen. Everything else, put it in your day sack. Yeah. Now that was 10 years ago, and that
stuck with you.
It's with me. That when I come back to that, and I talked about it, I use that as an analogy that really works for me. It's something I can turn back to and think, don't worry about that. It's not. I can't impact it.
It's what we call the Elsa moment. You let it go.
And it was kind of really valuable. And I think what that led me to do is really look at some of the challenges that I've had in my life, and particularly around, I don't have a great relationship with my parents, and that kind of thinking's really led to me as I didn't choose my mother and father. I just was born, right? I choose my wife, and by nature we chose our kids, and I choose my friends, and actually they're the ones that kind of bring me comfort in life and security and so on and so on. So the fact of this, I've got to have a relationship with my parents. Well, why do I? It doesn't bring me comfort. It doesn't bring me satisfaction. It doesn't make me happy. So why would I put myself through it? It's probably taken me 40 years to get to that place where I'm completely comfortable that if it sounds a bit brutal, but if I never saw my parents again,
you'd be okay.
I'd be okay with that.
But obviously you've been, sorry, I was going to say that, but you said you've been away since you were 16 years old.
Yeah. Is
there a possibility, there's various reasons why you don't want a relationship with your parents, but is there a possibility that you actively don't want a relationship with your parents because it takes you back to them for 16 years, which weren't great?
I think it's always been so. I've always valued family. I'd always be there, and it's a bit. I'm sure you probably all got a friend that's like this, where you always are there for your friend, but they might not be there, and you kind of go, who's the fool in all of this? So I think where you're repeatedly let down, and I've been repeatedly let down through my life, that you've got at some point to make peace with that, because it just eats away at you if not, and it starts to affect your daily life. So one of the things that is probably one time in the year, twice in the year, that really affects me, and my wife's really good at dealing with it, it's Mother and Father's Day. Yeah. Even though I'm a father, she'll say, we're going around my dad's for Father's. I don't want to. It's not, because for me, it's it's that one day a year where probably it could reopen that box that I don't want to reopen. And so she's got quite good at that, but we had to, we've had quite a fierce fight around, but it's my dad and we shouldn't see him.
I can really relate to that, right? So I come back, my mum's, when people, there's two people, whenever you get that old adage, goes, who's your hero and all that, that sort of stuff. My mum and my brother, basically my mum was a single parent and stuff like that, and then like my brother was bathing me when he was 9. You know what I mean? Like, so the amount of responsibility he had. What we were saying is I can resonate with what you were saying about coming to terms with Father's Day. And I actually found for the first 27, 28 years of my life, Father's Day was irrelevant until 5 years ago. And even on that first initial Father's Day, my wife had to remind me is actually it's a different meaning now. So it was quite it's a moment where someone says something and she just downplayed it. She said almost like should have been getting to gear moment. It's like you've got someone who actually wants to do Father's Day with you now, and it was quite a cool moment, but also, like you said, it relates to the message I said earlier. When I get older, I remember the things from previously, and it goes back. So, no, thank you for sharing your side of it and all that. I know you didn't want to delve too much into your past and stuff like that.
I'm a massive believer in yesterday's gone, tomorrow's kind of what you focus on, and I think you're shaped massively by your past. So whether that's through mistake or whether that's through success. Everything kind of that has gone before leads you to do what really is the future. So if you don't really confront your past, how do you kind of move forward? And there's a bit that can be challenging, right? Where you don't really want to open that Pandora's box. You've got to, haven't you? Because it just sits there and haunts you.
That's what you said earlier. Trauma management, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
When you say the word trauma, you automatically think someone's lost their leg. Trauma can come in any way. Anything can be traumatic. Someone's comment to you at a very bad time could be traumatic for you. It's just how that has affected the individual at the time.
This week, obviously, Lewis Hamilton lost his dog, right? Yeah. And where you kind of look at events that go back. So the only time my wife's ever seen me cry was when we lost our dog. Right, so we've lost people in the family and everything like that. But I was super attached to this Labrador, and a kind of man and his dog there's that relationship, and it's interesting. It kind of I suppose scratch the surface of something when you read about Roscoe and I mean I like Formula One, but you read about his dog and then you think, I remember what I was like with that dog. It's kind of
it does I can resonate. I had a lovely little black lab to put down to you. It's mad, isn't it? I always went to no, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I was just like stream of rivers coming down my face. It's one of those, but
Oh, mate, do it. Obviously, I had a lab for 3 years, and to be fair, my lab and his lab had kids, so I actually met.
Oh really?
I met my dog's kid for the first time today. One of the kids, so I asked him to call me granddad, but didn't. But very recently, right towards the end of my run, we decided that it wasn't fair to keep our dogs. So I work away quite a bit. And my partner's in the police, so we are past and shit. And it's hard enough with a kid. And our dog, who's so energetic, was just not getting the attention he needed. He was getting walks, but dogs are so much more than just walks.
Just doing
presence, especially he was so energetic, and it was a real tough decision. And I'm not an emotional person, right? I didn't cry on my kid before. Like last time I cried was when I left the army. And see the day the bloke came to pick him up. Honestly, I was honestly an absolute mess. And then I did a run a few days after, and I was feeling so down for about 3 or 4 days. I still think about it all the time, but I was so down about it. I was like on the video, I just sort of had a bit of emotion and sort of cried and stuff like that. But I tried to put the message of it's okay to feel low. I felt low, but I knew that it was for a period of time. But yeah, dogs are so different. And I went to see my dog. Well, that's not my dog anymore. It's really hard to keep saying that. But this last weekend just gone. It's been probably about 5 weeks, 6 weeks since I gave him away. And I went to see him for the first time, and it was like I felt I was fine. So I was going up to the gate. I'd never been to the house before. Got to the house, I went down, And they opened the door and he came out and he ran to me and he was like, he's almost like what Bella was earlier, just like wincing sort of thing. And he never does that. He's not vocal, he doesn't bark and do anything. Yeah. But he was laying on the floor. He was almost like trying, playing with him, and he was almost like crying sort of thing because he was happy. And I was like, bloody hell, it was getting to me. And then I was fine. I composed myself. It was all good. Spent about 45 minutes there playing with him and all sorts. And then time came to go, and I got in the car and he was like. He'd sat down and put his ears back because he was looking at me like as if to say, I'm not going with you. Can I come with you? And he tried, when I put my kid in the car, he tried to jump in the car, and I was like, oh no. And I was driving away, and I was driving up their driveway. I turned around, I was driving down the driveway, and he's just looking at me, and they were sort of there. And I was like, good grief. Good grief.
I've done it again.
I did. I rang my missus. She wasn't there with me at the time. I was like, she was like, how is he? I was like, I felt like a lump in my throat. I was like, I'll call you back. I'll call you back.
But then interesting, because you said 3-4 days you were really feeling down, and we talked, we touched quite a bit on this about how people feel, and sometimes people are not feeling. Like, how do people connect? Like if you don't own a dog or never own a dog, and so you say, "Oh, you okay?" Well, no, I'm not actually, because I've lost my. How does in that conversation how people resonate or be able to give you advice or guide you on you feeling low? Because like a dog's quite a personal connection, isn't it? So it's kind of that we touched on earlier, having the tools to deal with what somebody may tell you in whatever capacity that is. If you're not a pet person, you can't be authentic about it.
So it's really good you say that. So anyone I ever talk to, either if I talk to them from a capacity that they want to educate themselves on how to deal with a mental health conversation, or whether they need to have a mental health conversation themselves, I always say the first thing is don't focus on the problem. Focus on the person, because how that person feels, and it's not necessarily the problem isn't for you to solve. And in the construction industry it's hard, right? Because we're all in construction trying to build things better, safer, quicker, faster, right? So we're logical people that try to find solutions to all sorts, right? So when someone talks to you and they're struggling, all you want to do is you want to fix their problem, right? Do not focus on the problem. Just focus on the person.
I think you can flip it, and I'm not comparing kids to dogs before we get that, but it's you can put the same sort of situation every time someone walks away to go away from work for maybe a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatnot. Every time that their kids at that door saying goodbye, every time for that, not wanting them to go, and it's how we deal about that. That person's then going to go stay in whether it's shared accommodation or a room on their own, thinking about those thoughts in their head. They've just left their kids, and then that's what we underestimate within the construction highway sector, that these guys are away. In our particular business, we try and help people and get that at source, and you're absolutely bang on. Don't try and fix the problem. You just, because it's not what you're there for, but you can try and lift the weight off it. So we've recently had one, and I'm not going to name names because it's unfair on them, but recently had one, and we noticed something's gone wrong, something's going on. Not going wrong, he's a happy chap and stuff like that, but we took him out for a coffee, took him out of the business, we're having a coffee and chat. And he opened up, he fully opened up, said, I'm finding it hard to balance this. He's one of these ones that feels that every time there's something to do right now, and he can't let it go, and he's got to do it to the best of his ability and all that sort of stuff. And it was about talking to him, it was about, hang on. And it very much alludes to your rucksack and your it's like, is that really what you need to do? What's the consequence of not doing that right now? Or what's the consequence of you starting an hour later? Because he'll get in at 6 a.m, which he doesn't need to start at 6 a.m. He started at 7 or 8. I said, just go and have a coffee with your wife and breakfast with your kid, and you'll see just already the change that you'll do. So he's implemented that.
Yeah, I mean, and that goes back to what you said earlier on about when you went onto that call and somebody said, we need to DNA test them. It's just having that sort of where you're not involved in the conversation. Because when you're in that position, like that guy is, perception is 9 cents reality. If that is your perception of the world and the situation, it needs somebody to give him like a Control-Alt-Delete moment, reset, reprogram, go again. And so to Ash's point about you don't necessarily have to solve the problem, it's sometimes just a perception change or a reality check sometimes can just move people out of that downward spiral.
Yeah.
Someone always said to me that we all have to work to live.
Yeah.
But you don't live to work. Like your life don't become that, and that's not saying that you can't be passionate about what you do a good job and all that sort of stuff, but you've got to make sure that your life is balanced around you. And sometimes it's just reminding people of like, you're only going to be more productive at work if you've got your balance.
That's why construction's harder, right? Construction's daylight hours.
Yeah.
And daylight hour shifts, but your work shifts as well. Like it becomes lighter and earlier in the morning and later in the evening. You work longer.
I think it's so, you know, it's a component of my job. Coming out of the forces, I became a safety professional, and so the basis of safety you can apply across multiple sectors.
Yeah.
So I worked in construction before. I go and work in manufacturing, as long as I kind of should be fine. So because I'm a big believer, if you don't enjoy what you do, don't let it rule you. So make a change. So I say the day that I stop enjoying what I do at work is the day I walk out the door.
Yeah.
Because 5 days a week, and it's not 40 hours. My contract says 40 hours, but it's not 40 hours. But I'm out of the house doing something that if I hate, I know it's a bit of a flip side for me. I know that has the impact on out of work.
Yeah.
The out of work doesn't necessarily impact my in work.
Yeah.
It works the other way around for me. But the challenge with construction is you go into a trade, and there's similarities with the armed forces that generally a reasonable percentage of people in construction probably didn't get great qualifications at school, didn't really achieve, a bit more of a kind of hands-on trade type person. But you become a bricklayer, a plasterer or whatever, then you're a bricklayer and a plasterer. You can't go and be a bricklayer in manufacturing, and you can't go and be so it's actually this little bit of a trap in the construction industry that if you are unhappy, it's really difficult to go and make that change because you've got all this responsibility at home that you're working to pay for. So then you end up, I don't like it, so what I'll do is I might go and chase money because that
makes me happy.
It'll soften the blow of not particularly enjoying what I do. So you chase the money, you end up working away, and it's quite a vicious cycle. In constructions, it's really only the kind of own basket case really, because it's not, we talk coming out of the forces all the time about transferable skills, but if you're a dry liner or you're a electrician, what is the transferable skill
from that?
Because there are reasonably well paid trades. You've got transferable skill, like I can manage something, but you're probably starting back at the bottom again.
You don't have that discipline of that particular
So you can understand why construction does impact people's mental health in a variety of different fashions, because you're almost kind of stuck. So you see guys that are kind of back end of their career and you're
I think they can only go in one place.
You've been doing this, I've been doing this trade for 40, 50 years. It's all I've ever known, and I just kind of get on with it. And you can understand why that mentality comes into construction of just get your head down and get on with it, because I can't really see a way to change the work piece.
We talk about outside factors here as well. I mean, we've solved the world's problems off camera earlier, but we talk about the media presence and that sort of stuff. And Chris, you made a good point. Off camera, how many times do we hear about a suicide or someone taking their life or mental health issues within construction and highways on the news? I think I can remember one.
Yeah. I don't know if any of you've ever had a real conversation with you. Of course, you said it earlier, but with someone who's genuinely struggling to take their own life, right? That's heavy, man. That's so heavy, and it's a burden. And from a selfish perspective, that's a real heavy conversation to have, because you've automatically got a responsibility in your mind to do something. And what to do in that situation? Do I call an ambulance? Do I stay with them? And
especially if it's someone that you're close to, because it puts you in that sort of like, what do I do? Yeah.
And it's heavy, right? And it's heavy, and sometimes there's no amount of training that can put you in that position. It's just educating yourself that, okay, it's just being in a position where, right, I know where we can go to for help. I know that decide, is it a crisis or are you distressed? If a person's in crisis, that's like 999 help. If you're in distress, that's an education piece. That's like, right, okay, let's take you out of your environment. What can we do to support you? Let's get you some education. There's some charities here. There's signposts. I can support you in that environment and and let's have a follow-up. I'll give you a call like tomorrow, in a couple of days, whatever it needs to be, right? You discuss that between yourselves, and hopefully there's a way out of that. But if someone's in distress, that's when like, crap, I've got to have a serious conversation here. Like, I can't leave you. I've got to stay with you, and that's heavy. So it's about just making sure that people can necessarily make a judgment call on whether someone's in crisis or distress, and just know where to go for help. Because I don't want to dig out the NHS. I don't want to dig out the NHS because I think the NHS is absolutely amazing. It's the backbone of our country. But I do believe that the NHS aren't resourced enough to support that mental health. And because mental health support is, I'll get you in with a psychiatrist in 12 weeks' time. Make anything happen in 12 weeks.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Sometimes we get bogged up in this. We're all in a sector where businesses are competing and all that sort of stuff, but actually at the end of the day, health and well-being comes over all of that, and we are working in an area where we should all be connected no matter what business you are. We've all got individual EAP, so we actually, for like our subcontractors, we've started, because we know that we sort of have a look at it and we go, oh, actually, we haven't been as good as we should be. So we started actually opening that up and making sure we educate our subcontractors about that, because they're still part of that. And I think like whether you're working for your tier ones, your tier twos and all that sort of stuff, there should be so much more communication about it. I think it should be in all of their inductions when you're starting it and going, actually, there is a place to go and talk, and it can be completely confidential. It can be this, because if you go to someone, and I've spoken to some tier one contractors and they don't even know their own EAP, never mind like those, but it's all there. All these places have got them in.
And EAPs are class.
Yeah, they're brilliant
really
to touch
good,
into.
mate.
Even the one that you get app, you can go on. No one needs to know about it. You can go on, talk about. I mean, I'm just judging by ours, but I'm sure a lot of them are similar.
They're all the same.
Where you've got like, you can talk about your well-being, your finances, anything, like literally anything that you're worried about. You can go and get like counselling sessions for free. Like, just
you want to stop smoking, you get a voice to stop smoking.
Yeah. Program is key.
Yeah.
Right, program's key. You don't hit the program, LADs. We're talking thousands of pounds a day. All that type of thing. That is the opposite of really of a culture you want to create of care in my view. And I think that's something that we've got to navigate through as an industry. We talked to. You look at IR35, right, as an example. So we moved to that as an industry. We touched on training. I think you mentioned it earlier. Why don't we train the supply chain? I can't. Because I've breached the IR35 regs.
Well, and to be fair, I love it you say that, because it's a real good point. Is when you think about introducing any sort of legislation, we're all thinking maybe what I said earlier around the Suicide Prevention Act. Well, there's other legislation you can. We need to look at what the contributors are towards poor suicide rates, right? And a lot of it does come down to into some aspects of pay, whether that's individual pay, like day rates. Day rate, I'm a strong believer that day rate pay is killing our industry, and I don't think, because one, them on option C contracts or whatever more, you don't work, you don't get paid. So there's no time out. Second of all, you're relying on them individuals. So if you're looking for that individual to better themselves through training and education, or whether it be to support their career or support their mental state, they've got to pay for themselves on day rate. Because obviously, gloriously, the day rate adds to better holidays and better cars at home, which before you start that sounds absolutely amazing. And to be fair, I've contemplated going on day rates before because of like how lucrative it can be, right? But there's one, it's a day rate, you've got payment terms, so contractors, especially bigger contractors, not paying people, not paying contractors. Companies have gone under, right? Absolute killer, and it really is affecting them, which involves retention. The head of the Construction Leadership Council mentioned last week that they're trying to ban retention, any retention on contracts. I'm not a commercial guru, so I don't necessarily know completely what that.
But you've got things like conflict avoidance group that's set up and to kind of minimise, any because conflict's a big issue, right? You put valuation £1 million and somebody says it's 500,000, I've still got to pay. All the people who've just done all the work. I think I come back to the legislation. One of the challenges in our country, and I know we talked about it kind of outside this room, but if we think of the history of legislation is a give and take in the houses, whether that's House of Commons, House of Lords, that there's got to be something in it for the people that are sat along those benches, and it's not, those people sat on the benches, yes, they're doing it for the people, but actually there's always something in it for them, and that's the challenge. If you're invested in something and it's going to have an impact financially on something, do you really get behind a piece of legislation, and I think that's a little bit of a challenge of introducing legislation that could impact a industry that it might not be backed unless it's doesn't affect.
I've worked for Valve BT, and I'll tell you what, the amount of things you need to do to start a project with Valve BT is a lot, right? Of course, the risk is there because they've got the what's reasonable to them is a lot higher than what's reasonable to smaller companies. But there's so much stuff, and there is a value in a lot of the stuff. There's a lot of value where people need to take the time. They need to create all these things, do all these, like, you know, all of the safety documentation, whatever it needs to be. And then you have, during the process of the project, they've got some real good resource around whether it's getting done on time, on safety, on budget, on quality, right? And it was a real good experience to be brought into the industry about, but the renewables industry is so far beyond that. It's literally, right, when's the connection date? Right, what can we do to get this done? Like, and it's so like what I heard construction was like in the early 2000s.
It's like the Wild West.
Yeah.
I think there's looking at where we are now as an industry, if we kind of look over the last 5 years. So, and I think the construction industry directly kind of follows where we are financially as a nation as well. So that whether it's a kind of boom and bust area. My sitting over a lot of different things, all of in maybe 3-4 years ago, where, you know, your corporate social responsibility or sustainability, all these things were like kind of high up on the agenda. They're not now because they cost, and budgets are getting squeezed. You know, whether it's HS2, whether it's national highways, whether it's whatever, every budget's getting squeezed by the government.
Treasury,
Right. So let's remember, and I work at Old Oak Common, and it's quite interesting. We're building a railway. Never forget that. That's what we're doing. That's what we're all there for, is to build a railway. All the other things around it, yes, they're important, but the main important thing is we're building a railway. Right. That's what we're spending the taxpayers' money on. And I think we've got to. I think there's a risk of, as the government is struggling financially and squeezing budgets and pulling projects, and then the market's far more competitive. There's less money to do things, so all the progress that we've made in certain areas is potentially a risk that we forget. If you think around mental health, the progress that the industry's made on mental health in a reasonably short period is amazing compared to out and out safety. You think we go back to the Factories Act and Health and Safety at Work Act and, you know, all the subsequent legislation that's come. What we've got to be really careful of is we don't undo that work because we haven't got the resources and budgets to be able to support that work at the time.
We're not squeezed so much that we actually forget about that.
Absolutely, and I feel there's a risk in our industry that we are going back to more it's cheapest price, it's who's doing it's the quickest. And that will have a direct impact.
You just need to look at, right, and it's simple as though, like, because when you're looking at those sorts of things, it's what do you put the value on a human life at, right? And it is the question, isn't it? Are we going to squeeze that, make sure we push that? Because that's what it ultimately comes down to, is if we push that mental health concentration out, maybe well-being, maybe, like you said, are we valuing what we value? You put a value on someone's life, and it's not. It's meant to be. No matter what we do, we're meant to push that forward.
It's difficult because it's not a trade-off, is it?
No,
it's not a trade-off for someone's life, is it?
Well, it makes me chuckle now. You kind of seeing it all the time, and you know it's kind of not reality. Where you get your tender information pack, and it breaks down, and it says, right, so we're going to score 100%, and 70% is done on quality, 10% is done on sustainability, and 20% is done on price. Yeah, come on, let's all get in a room. The 80 and 5, let's merge those into 5%, and let's come back to the 95% on the price. And it doesn't make a difference how you, because one of the things is you can't hide from the price. The price is the price. So if you've put £1 million on a piece of paper, I've put 2 million, you've put 3 million. Who are they coming to? It's probably the 1 or the 2 million. 3's a bit out. The quality side of your submission is subjective to a certain extent, isn't it? Because I can decide, even though yours was a fantastic answer, I didn't like it, and you're going to score a higher answer. You can't hide from the price. And that's a challenge as we've got less and less and less. You talk about the biggest infrastructure project currently in Europe. Everything currently is about programme and price.
Get it done, get it finished, get the trains rolling.
We have a responsibility to the taxpayer to protect their investment. We've got this, you don't hear the front centre line is, we've got a workforce of thousands and thousands of people, and we want to make sure that they're mentally and physically well every day. That's not the headline.
No.
It's program and it's price. And has that not been the case for the industry for?
So do you think then that the focus of the project is program and price, but then the client, whoever the client may be, thinks, well, the workers are your problem?
Yeah, absolutely. But
That's a you problem.
you come back to
that's up to you as a price, isn't it?
You get back to.
That's what I'm saying.
It's always been the same.
That is a thing. I've seen it happen and stuff like that. And it's like, actually, if we're involved with anyone, no matter what you are, you should have a respect and just, again, I've talked just about being a human. Is you should give and excuse my friends, but you should give a shit about that human life and push it forward, absolutely. Regardless of if they work directly for you, they're subcontracted or anything like that. They're part of you at that point. So you've got to have that, just like you would want someone else to. And it's just about for me personally, it's about cutting through that barrier. Is yes, we're all under pressure to do our jobs. Yes, we've got a timescale to hit, but you can step back and go, is that person all right? Have I done the best for them that I can? Or do you know what I mean? And it's about that sort of. And
also, there's an element of it of asking the question: what happens if this person falls over? You know, are you happy with that as the client, with that on your conscience? You right with that? If we push these people too hard, then what we're going to do?
I would love to say that every client I've ever worked for and will work for in the future, if somebody fell over, would have a conscience and say, how are they? Can we support? The negative side of my brain says, who's replacing them?
Yeah.
That's probably more of a.
When I say fell over, I don't mean physically. I mean mentally.
But it's the same concept. Isn't it? So whether I fall over mentally or physically, I'm probably not in a position where I can complete that role that I'm on that project to do or in the business to do. And there's how long does empathy last?
It's a tough balance, like when you look, and it's going to change from opinions, isn't it? And that's what we're here to talk about, because it's going to change from opinions from supervisors to people on the ground. So I could ask someone in commercial, I could ask someone that they're going to have a different outset on it, aren't they?
Yeah, which the thing is though, if you come back to it, it's not no one's individual fault.
No.
It's just the way the industry's gone. It's been led, right? So that's just the way it is. And there was when I had a couple of operations. I was in the army, and one of the times I had operations, we was meant to go on a big exercise, and my role at the time was to do a lot for booking training areas and do like the bit of the nuts and bolts about where we can go and where to be and stuff like that. And then I remember I just had my operation, and I was basically, and I was meant to have like 9 weeks off, whatever it was, to rest. I wasn't allowed to really walk around and stuff. But I came in after 2 weeks because I wanted to make sure that everything was sorted. So I came in, I was coming in the office, I was doing this. And the Sergeant Major walked past me. He was like, Rodgers, what are you doing? I was like, I've just got to do it. He said, come into my office, mate. And he sat me down and he was like, mate, listen, in the nicest way, you're a lovely book. You're a lovely book and you're so good at your job, mate. He says, but you're just a number. He said, you're just a number. He says, if you've had an operation, he says, if you died, that exercise will still go ahead.
That's what you need to hear, though.
Someone will come in and do your job for you. And don't get me wrong, we'll miss you. We'll miss you.
And we love
you. But you are a number, mate. You come first. I walked away there thinking, that resonated with me.
You've been talking to my wife. That's what she says to me. Why are you doing so many hours? You're just a number.
But they say that.
I'm a special number.
Cemetery full of people who didn't think they were replaceable.
They
thought they was irreplaceable. You know.
What's quite interesting. So we've got a really close mutual friend, and he lives up in Snowdonia, and he's ex-forces, and he's a cracking bloke. So he's retrained, does a lot of deep mine tours.
Okay.
And so he's telling me, he says some interesting stories. So there's this one particular mine near where he lives, and I forget the exact name they call it. It's like the killing field or something like that. And a minimum of 10% died in that mine. So 1 out of every 10 that went in there kind of died. But what they used to do is because the mines, they wanted to obviously monopolise the money. When you go in these mines, they're essentially underground and they're slate, and 10% of the slate gets used and the rest of it's wasted. So you've just almost got cliff faces in the mine. If somebody died, they used to get people to carry them out of the mine and lay them at the entrance, get a doctor, and the doctor would pronounce them dead at the entrance, so they didn't die in the mine. so they didn't have to pay any compensation. So you imagine this is like that. You go back, that's 100 years ago, but you imagine like the mental strain there for because they, it's not like we work in tunnelling and tunnel miners are paid a pretty penny, right? But somebody that was working in a slate mine somewhere in Wales, I could say wasn't on pop star wages. So you imagine kind of that.
That's funny.
And back those, if you've got now a single parent with children, that back then the man was the breadwinner. Like imagine that mental health impact all that is. But we didn't even that in there. You didn't even talk about it. It weren't a thing. It weren't kind of.
I suppose life was more community based, and people the community would rally around you a bit more to support your food and accommodation and health.
It's funny you think about like the mental health side of things. Like it actually wasn't that long ago that public hangings were like an event. Let's go down and watch the local thief be hung.
Stone it.
Stone him.
Absolutely, it is and again, like it just puts into perspective that yes, we're talking about raising awareness about mental health and stuff like that, but we have come a long way in a short amount of time. And it is a short amount of time from when we've actually really concentrated on it. Because when you put it in perspective, it isn't that long since that stuff like that was happening. So it is mad, isn't it? Like,
well, so this is a classic, and you'll know this. So, in the forces, if you went away on tour, the army chiefs would say it was kind of important for your mental health that you did decompression. So what they'd do is, you'd fly to Cyprus to go 3 days on the drink, and then you'd come home because you're decompressed. And it's a kind of
that's the natural depressant.
You picked up there about how things have come on quite a bit from thieves being publicly hung. Well, we've now gone full circle where thieves and other people are now being publicly trained by Ash. Ash is now going into prisons, and he's giving people qualifications in health and safety. We're trying to get them to the point where they come out of prison with a CSCS card, so they can come straight from prison, straight to employment. Because previously they came out, they wanted to get work on a site, we haven't got a CSCS card, can't work. So then they can't get any money. So then what do? The cycle continues. So,
but a lot of it was like the amount of construction workers that are within prisons, and we don't just do a program, right? So we don't do any government funding, and that I go in and train them myself because that forms part of a job interview type of thing.
We did it
for about 3 years.
Do they face any barriers like when they come? So particularly like obviously highways, you're working with national highways and things such as that.
It's encouraged.
No, it's encouraged.
Is it? But there's no because technically it's national.
We have guidance.
Essentially,
we have guidance on stuff and that's each specific to each sort and take on. But it's it's encouraged within the sector. It's actually probably one of the higher ways we get people within the doors. So the reason why we did it is we looked at actually our workforce, and we've got like a seasonal workforce that come in and stuff like that. And we looked at our seasonal workforce, and 25% of them had convictions or ex-convictions, and we're like, oh, so why aren't we tapping into that market? So we just went out on a whim, and there is a funny story here with it, but we went out on a whim and we just implemented it, and we actually do it a bit different. Like I said, no government funding. We go out, I do the training, and if we like someone, we'll take them in and
so while they're getting trained, it's also an interview process they don't realise. But then we do it in the Category C prisons so that they're being readied for release. So it's almost like an interview process. And if we know they're coming out and that they've shown good aptitude while they've been in there with Ash, then we can make an offer to them to come and join.
But there's so many trained people in there. Like we just do drop-in sessions as well. So just go and talk to the guys on the wing and stuff. And then they're like, hey, I used to be a foreman on a site, but I'm making this one up. This is the sort of thing, but there might be a foreman on a site, and then they go, yeah, no, I had an argument with I caught my missus cheating or something like that, and then I went out, I got too drunk, and then I had a fight, and I'm in here. Or it's that sort of stuff. There's so many stories like that, and you're like, one bad decision has put them in there, and then we're trying to take them out. So we visited it at Christmas, actually. I'd visited it prior, we visited at Christmas, and you realise, and there was a stat that it was something, I can't quite remember it properly, so don't quote me on it, but it was something like 50% of people who come out without a job, they'll walk to the car park and punch a windmere off to go back in, because it's like they're getting warm from there.
You talked about the army. It almost becomes their parent.
Yeah, they're in.
Got my food, got a roof over my head, got bed for the night, got a bit of structure. it's cold out there on the streets. I've got, they might be having addiction problems or something along those lines. And so one guy we met when we went in there, and he said, I'm happier in here.
Yeah, I don't want to come out.
I don't want to come out. So if it was almost like, if I know I'm on the way out, a sentence is coming off, I'll play up a bit in here and I'll extend it a bit, and I'll get another 6 or 9 months.
But there is people who really want to come out. We've had some really good people from the programme, but we took Lev in there for the first time, and we were getting shown around where they got something called prison employment lead to really care. Like we're going to try and get the one that we work with on one of our sessions, because she actually really cares, and she took him in. She said, "Do you want to go see an employment hub? I know where the employment hub is, but if you've never been in a prison before."
First of all, we went in. This was the first one we ever did, and it was in the chapel at Leicester Prison. So I was there with Ash. I'd helped Ash set the programme up in the first instance, introduced him to the people, and then it was like, right, look, Ash, this is your world, mate, away you go. So he went over, we did the first training session. We had, 40 prisoners maybe coming to the chapel that day. Load of interest from them. We were talking to them as human beings, didn't stand behind the lectern, just sat on the edge of the chair, just chatting to them. Because we didn't want to come across as though we were preaching in terms of the virtues. If you've got to come and be good people when you come out.
It's all right though, you were in the chapel, so you could have preached.
Could have preached, yeah, exactly. But then afterwards, when it had finished, we'd sat there and we got a lot of people to sign up for the programme. And it was then that she said, "Oh, come and see where I work at the employment hub," as Ash said. I went, "Oh, okay, lovely." So now I'm thinking we're going to go into an office block. Go on.
I'd already been, so I knew where she was going. So I let Neil walk right behind her, straight into the main wing, which is not threatening at all. The guys come and talk to you, but if your first time in there, it can be quite overwhelming. And he just walked in and didn't know what he was walking into, straight into it.
Straight onto the wing. I've got the metal grills above me. They're all in the cells. They're all walking around. I was like, oh, hang on. I'm too pretty for prison.
But it's a good experience because the guys actually want to talk.
It was really good to go out there and see the guys in the wing. They were really respectful, really pleasant to the prison employment lead as well, the lady who we deal with, Helen Cox. And then they were coming in saying, "Oh, I didn't get a chance to come to your speech earlier on. Can you tell me more about it?" And then we were chatting to one guy, and he went, "Hang on a minute." Went off, brought another 3 back. And they went, "Oh yeah, we'll sign up for this. This is really good. We'll do this. I want to get out. I want to change my life. Come out with qualifications so I can work." And you feel then, don't you, that you've actually made a positive contribution to someone's life. They might come out only with the qualifications and never work for Kiely's. That's fine. They've come out with qualifications. All we can do, all we can do is just give them the opportunity.
I probably mentioned it. So my uncle was killed in construction, and
There's still time.
So at this point, this is very similar to not telling us about the man going to Scotland.
Yeah.
So I remember 1996. I can remember it was yesterday. So I'm a Rotherham United fan, and we got to Wembley, the old Wembley, first ever time we'd ever been there. Sunday, and we played Shrewsbury in the Windscreen Shield, and we won 2-1. Nigel Jebson scored twice for Rotherham, and Steve Anthropos scored for Shrewsbury. It's weird how you remember little details. Yeah. And I remember I'd only be, so like 14, stood on the kind of the old Twin Towers, and it was just amazing. We travelled back up north, and being in a school where everybody supported Leeds or United or whatever, I'm like, Rotherham, I've got my Rotherham jacket on. And came on Tuesday, and I got told my uncle had been killed, and he worked in tunnelling, electrician in tunnel. So he was killed by a pretty significant voltage. And basically somebody had done something they shouldn't have. He then, when he went to do his check, there was kind of live circuits where they shouldn't be. And anyway, he worked away a lot, and he'd been working on the sewerage works in Blackpool, and he finished on the Tuesday, which is his last shift. He was going off to a project in Wales. And my uncle had come through British Coal. He used to be an electrician in the mines in British Coal, and then got into tunnelling. And cracking bloke, do anything for anybody. And anyway, he'd done an 18-hour shift. So he'd just worked an 18-hour shift, and he just got back to the hotel, and they rang him up and said there was a problem with the tunnel boring machine. Could he come back? And he went back, and he never came back out of that mine. And so my auntie and my nan went there, and it's kind of weird scenario. So when they went there, they obviously saw where he was, where he died, and everything such as that. So he'd got a daughter that was 10-year-old, son that was an 8-year-old. So my cousin Natalie, she's obviously lost her dad, but she's actually had a pretty good life, and she's got 2 lovely girls and everything. My cousin, 8-year-old, his dad was his hero. They were Sheffield Wednesday season ticket holders. He used to go every week, and his dad was gone. So his mum tried to kind of treat him too much, ruin him with everything. He met a girl, they had a child, they split up. He lost his house, got it repossessed. He works as he does like fire stopping, and he's a big lad. He's 20 stone, big lad, 6 foot, and he constantly has got mental health issues. Yeah. So he's like if you bumped into him, you'd think he was part of a firm. He looks like that. Suffers with severe, like, crippling anxiety. He's never been able to get over the loss of his dad. His dad's like it's essentially go as far as it's ruined his life. Yeah. And Greg would say at times he probably wish he wasn't here. He wish he was with his dad. So interestingly, when I kind of talk about safety and I touch on this subject, years later, so this would have been in 2008, so it's been 22 years down the line. I was speaking to 10, 15 years down the line. I was speaking to this induction, and I was at Morgan Sindall, and the CQ director for Morgan Sindall was sat at the back of the room. And I used this story about, if you think something's unsafe, raise it, because I've lived that, through my life. My nan buried a son, my mum buried a brother, and it kind of has massive ripple effect across. Then when that person's gone, but it has a massive effect and affects so many people after. And anyway, so Martin at the back of the room listened, and he said, "I don't mean to pry, and by the way, if you don't want to tell me, don't." He said, "Your uncle wasn't called Derek by any chance, was it?" I said, "Yeah, he was." He just burst into tears. And I didn't know why, and what it turned out is he investigated my uncle's death. Weird, that's such a small world. And what he said was, he's never been able to forget when my auntie went there, and he said, "Julie, can I show you where Derek passed?" She said, "No, I just want his snap box and flask," because that was the last thing that she used to give him on a Sunday before he left.
Give me goosebumps.
And
it's mad.
And he's still now. It's like he's quite. My cousin puts stuff on like Facebook all the time. It's like a cry for help. So so I can't go on, and people say, "Oh, it's right, Greg. You've got your family around you, or your Sheffield Wednesday family, or whatever." And still, that's haunting him year after year.
Yeah, it's mad. I mean, I think that's a great place to sort of a segue on, because that shows you the effects it has on other people. Actually, so it's a good way to sort of go from. But we've all got. First of all, thank you guys for coming on, travelling, taking time out of your day, all of you. I think we've got some incredible sort of personal stories from you all, and thanks for sharing, and also some amazing stuff that you guys have done, especially the running, Chris, and I mean your mountain challenges. What was it? Did you have a final figure for your run in the end?
I need to double check, but I think it's around 13, 14 grams.
Well done.
Amazing.
Raising that awareness is amazing, so well done.
Hats off.
Just to end off, I want to try and end this off on a light thing, because this is how we're going to bomb people out within out on site, whatever level they be. We've got to remind people that they need advice, I think. Now that can be work related, it can be not. We spoke briefly about them off camera. But advice to just sort of clear your head and restart, and just remember that your life's actually, that people rely on you in life. So just sort of open it up. What's your advice? My advice. I've got a couple. I've got sport. I'm South African, so rugby's great, especially because we're successful at the moment. So like rugby's great. That also relates to the fact that I don't live there anymore. So that 80 minutes of watching South Africa play, it brings me back to South Africa again. I'm actually going to Twickenham tomorrow to watch them. They're playing Argentina, so that'll be quite cool. But that's my vice, like sports, my American sports or rugby and stuff like that. And when I'm watching that, I can't think of anything else because I'm one of these sad people that likes all the strategic and tactics of it. So I'm watching and I don't think of anything else, which that's my vice anyway. So yeah.
Sport, me, coach my son's football team, so I enjoy that. The boys that I coach all the time. Play golf, so I play golf, single figure golfing. So that's where I get my competitive fix. I don't play football, so I do my golf all the time and go to watch my daughter play netball. And then my bizarre hobby, if you can call it that, is I'm also a qualified funeral celebrant. So I actually go and see the families, take the service details, and then on the day do the service for families. So you just feel as though worst point of someone's life, if you can make it 1 or 2% better.
Wow.
Yeah. So I probably do about 10, 12 a year. I think do celebrancy. So not so much advice, but I actually enjoy helping them and going through the process with them. And I do say to Sharon sometimes, my wife, I've got a funeral this month. She looks at me, she says, what are you talking about? But yeah, I do enjoy that whole process of helping people. So yeah, bit odd, but.
So I would have said sport, to be honest, but actually as I've become a bit more disenchanted with football as I get a little bit older. So my vice is wood. So I love wood, like working with wood. Whatever I build, and I just build random things. I've probably on my third different garden bar now, which I built from scratch.
So we have to put the order in when we go mine.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So have you built the tools and everything now, the lathe and?
No, interesting. I build everything off eye. Because I don't measure anything. And what you get with that is that it's uniquely specific. And it's kind of one of a kind. So my eye, it always looks straight. Probably for everybody else, it's probably not straight. But
I do that with IKEA normally.
So it can be. I recently built a hot tub surround. I built a garden bar. It can be, something in the house, a cupboard or whatever. I just like working with wood. I find it kind of fascinating, angles and stuff like that. It's just something I kind of enjoy.
My vices change based on the situation. Sometimes I'm obsessed with running, and I love it. Sometimes I'm obsessed with other things that I'll do. But two things that are quite consistent would be so running and sports, and football. Unfortunately, Man United, which I'm obsessed with. But I'm
a Liverpool fan.
Which you did say, but running is normally a good thing for me because it gives me time to clear my head and whatever. But the other thing is catching up with friends, whether that's on the phone or whatever. I love, if I've got a long journey, don't get me wrong, it's not all the time, I love just ringing someone and having a catch up, because when the older you get, the more external your friends become. Like you've got so much responsibility, you've got a job, you've got kids, and they're your constant, right? Your mates, of course they're constant because they're there for you, but
you don't see them.
Friends is always an enjoyment, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got a perfect
choice.
I've got perfect fingerprint on the red button on my phone where it rings and rejects.
For me, yeah. Actually, perfect fingerprint. Yeah.
The long calls, mate. My brother. I just ring my brother if I'm not listening to a podcast. Ring my brother because my brother can talk for days. So
I've got the time.
I'm really lucky. My best mate lives in Tampa. So because they're 5 hours behind. If I'm ever working on a night, he gets rang every single night shift. Or if I'm like we do Cardiff, I might leave there at midnight. Well, it's only like 7 o'clock there, so he gets rang. If he ever rings me in the day, I'm too busy.
Yeah.
Well, don't worry, he's getting rang when I'm on the night.
You can ring him.
It's so useful having people around the world. To do all the times.
Right, guys, thank you very much for coming on. I think we've covered some wicked topics there, and sort of just to look out for episodes in future as well. Hopefully we can sort of carry on that message going forward.
Thanks for having us.
Cheers, guys.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, gents.
Cheers.
Enjoyed that. Well done. Nice to meet you.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, man.
Lovely to meet you guys, man.
Thank you.